Right, hello everyone, Mark Session here, and we'll take a look at the UV editing of this shark. So first of all, it has no UVs by default. We have some wires looking like this, and as you see, it's sculpted already. We have a multi-race modifier with the levels in the viewport. It's 1, so that means this is the original detail. If the original, what you see in the viewport, is very much different from the sculpting proportions, you may go to Go Shape and apply Base, and that helps to match the base mesh with the sculpted model. Okay, so let's go down and just move to UV editing, and here's the figure, and we can go to numpad 3 and all, selecting all, and this way you can see the wires in the editor. If you don't have selection, you will not see those, so please keep that in mind. Now, this is coming from a box. This was modeled from a box, so because of this reason, we have this originated inherited mesh layout. So the fastest way, if we are using the UV mapping shortcut and go with a smart UV project, and I will not change anything, and just this will create a quick, simple solution. The problem with this one, it's relatively distortion free, but when you have all of these, I'm moving on here in this window, pressing A to select all, and UV, and seams from islands, so I can check the various cuts that it made. So this is like an assembly of patches. It's like patchwork. So where you see these lines, those lines are actually seams, so the texture is coming from here, it stops, and then another patch is taking over, and the texture may continue on this side, for example here, or this one is the top, so we may move it from here and then going to this direction. So let me just select this point. So where's this point? All, and selecting these and make it interactive. So now if I'm selecting these, I can show up, yeah. So this is, for example, this is 1 point, and this, if this is interactive, what you select here, that will actually show up on the 3D window, and it will keep these visible. There's some disadvantage with this one, but that will come later. So now you can see that the text is coming from here, but it ends up moving on this patch. So if you paint something, you have to be very accurate. You would use 3D painting only to match those seams. Now, if you're painting basic colors, it won't be an issue. But if you're painting something more delicate, it will be. So how to get rid of these? First of all, let me just select all the vertices, vertex mode, edge mode, and U, and clear seams. So now we have no seams, and create our own. So Alt click and Alt Shift and Alt Shift to add to the selection, and U and mark seam. So now we can just cut off these right away. We also want to open up, because this is like a beanie hat, a cylinder shape, basically just flattened. So you have to have a side seam. I'm holding Control and cutting through, and if you're not cut enough, it will form a pocket. So be careful. You have to cut over to be able to have a very clean open line on this side and one original in here, and U and mark seam, so you don't have to do it all at once in selection. So select first, Control, and look around if it works fine, and cut through the pocket, mark seam, and there we go, and holding Control, and there we go, mark seam. So that's how it goes in here. Now these can be unfolded. If I'm selecting on here like L, this is not a loose part yet, but if we are going to face mode, the UV seams are actually behaving like separating the mesh. And if you remember, this shortcut L is select loose parts. Now you can select this one and U and minimum stretch, and this is how it looks. Okay, so that's our goal, to create a nice clean patch and cluster for all of these. But this is just a sample, so we'll not use this one right now. We want to match everything in scale, so we want to do all at once instead of separating this. So selecting the first, how to cut through the rest of the body. You don't want to really have seams too much visible. This is why it's somewhat hidden here. I don't need a seam on top of it because it's kind of a significant point of view of this figure. So I'm selecting this first edge in here and control, and the goal is to cut through the mouth, so I'll hold down and go this way. Now it may be a little bit harder. Let me see if it's so how to cut it through, because I try to use control, hold it, and as you see, this control is just going over, it's not cutting through perfectly. So I'll make it see-through, and the trick is to tumble the view. And let's just let me move closer. So as you rotate around and tumble the view, you can see that, okay, this is the next edge, and this may be the other one. So I'm tumbling the view and see how it goes. Yeah, this will be the next one. Just a little bit of a rotation allows. And now, if I'm moving around, Alt Z, Control, Alt Z to check if it's working fine, it's selecting everything through. Now it's clean. Okay, so let me cut through here. This control cut is like the control selection is like a connective type of selection of the edges. You have to go through the landmarks, so every corner, every major corner, but at least you have to select like 20% instead of the all of the edges. And U and Mark C. So what we have now, this mesh basically can open up entirely. So we can go to face mode, select all with A and U, and when you have these clusters designed, so you have the seams, you can go with unwrap angle, conformal, and minimum stretch. So ideally we want to have a minimum stretch, and this is how it looks. It's fairly neat. Now if you want to edit in external software like the picture, or you have someone who is not working in 3D but good in 2D, you may want to make it like vertical, and that helps a lot if you don't have a 3D model, just kind of the rough patch, and the 3D model is just viewed. So we can move in here and press L, G, and move it up, and like rotate it the right way, and L, G, and rotate. So this is the right side. This may be L, R, rotate. This is the other side. So this should be the top. This should be the bottom. Yes, yes, it is. So selecting L and G, and maybe move it here, and L again here, and just move them up. And let me first select this guy, rotate, make it like a relatively clean cut. I'm using the grid to align, and this is fairly neat. Try to avoid touching on some parts on these edges. L, moving it here. This may be like upside down, so if I'm selecting this spot, this is on here, so probably again it's just for a bit of visual clarity. It's not necessarily the best layout all the time. I mean effect wise, or how it's effective and how economical the layout is. So L, and I will move it here. Deselect L, G, move it here, and L, and move it here. That's good. And then we can select all of them and use the scale or this one and move it around and scale it up slightly to have even more room. Okay, so that's a nice layout. So still want to check it, and if there's modifications needed, we can go with that. I will show you some samples that the way you can modify. And here I made an error with this one, so that was by accident moved away. Now there are some cases when you want to modify the UV a little bit because it's like not laid out perfectly, or you want to have a different look of or because of space you need. So what you can do is when this mode is active, you cannot really select the points and then just move them away, and many of the points will move all together. So it happens you have like issues with those. So let me select them first and then just go around, read rotation. So it's oftentimes it's not working properly or as expected. So what you can do is to make it work well and use proportion editing and things, we can turn this off. Now when you turn this sync off, it will be gone. So you have to go select all again. And let me go back to simple select box, and because everything is selected here, it will be visible here. And then we can select this spot and Control Plus to like grow it, or like selecting a set and then Control Plus and grow. It's oftentimes a lot easier. We have a little bit of a mess here, so that could be done with a little bit of relax, for example. So that's helping us to clean up some areas. So that's a great tool. If you find things overlapping, you can do this. This is basically checking the 3D mesh and this 2D layout and makes it cleaner. Okay, so in some cases, yeah, I don't want to be too aggressive because the UV should be okay already. That was an error here. So again, to modify and like rotate a part, we can like Control Plus grow and use the proportion editing, and I will press G, and now proportion editing is way too big, so I'll just shrink it down and allows me to move some parts. So this is one thing that I can do. And connected only, this allows to like moving only the part that is physically connected. So when this one is not on, it's a very small but very important feature. So when this one's that turned on, it's hard to control. And once we have this proportional editing, then we can just use the rotation and rotate this thing around. For example, now here, let me just turn on connected only. So I can move this thing around. Something else may be handy if we are using the transform, and we even have the 2D cursor mode, so you can select your 2D cursor, move your 2D cursor somewhere here, for example. Now go back to transform. Transform is using now 2D cursor, so you can rotate around the 2D cursor. Rotate around 2D cursor. So that's where we go. That's somewhat the center. Okay, there we are. Yep, here we are. And with this one, so rotation, Control Plus, and now using this and rotates around that area. Okay, so you will get better results if you're using the rotate and not the transform in this case, but that's how it works. And Shift C is the reset for this, but then we are turning this back on, like median point. That's the standard one. So that's usually place it in at your selection. So it places the rotation at the selection. So this is what you need to know. This is more refined adjustment. But again, usually these the arrangements are fine enough. You don't have to do these. However, the relax is a very useful, or the grab, for example, is a very useful tool if you have to, like, okay, it's too tight. So what to do? An F to resize it, and then you can move it around, and that's how it goes. Right. So let's check the texture. We are going to shading. And there is a material in here, and I will just rename it to Sharky. And we need a map that may be a UV checker. This UV checker map is looking like this. So we have like numbers and letters usually to see if something is mirrored or not. This is just a simple image texture node, and because it's based on UV, you don't even have to add anything to it. However, Shift A and UV coordinates, UV map, Shift A and texture that we have. Okay, I will use the Control T. Yep, mapping and texture coordinate. This is what we want, and I will delete this guy and connect it up here. So this Control T is working if you have Node Wrangler enabled. That comes with Control Dot, but it's the same edit preferences and add-ons and Node Wrangler. So there you can, if it's enabled, then when you hit on an object like this, you can press Control T and it will set up an image texture mapping and everything like that. And then you can set it up and just load the texture here. And the reason why I wanted it here, because we have the scale, and selecting all of these and scale up, and that allows to have a little bit better sizing. So we can see that this is even. The distortion is relatively distortion free. The seams are not that visible, so we have some seams here and there, but if you watch it from here, it's pretty common. It's not even noticeable here. Here it is, but it's not that big of a deal if you don't have like crazy textures there. And when we have a little bit more details, it becomes even smoother, and that's kind of a nice touch. All right, so let me now, if this one is right and you start painting and you want to paint on it, you definitely don't want to keep this UV checker on, so we can just get rid of it and delete the stuff. And also you don't need here, so if you want to turn it off, you can just go there and remove it because it's loaded in here as well. All right, so that's how UV can be done. And that's the preparation for painting the model with the texture paint and adding details through painting. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.